Well, good morning guys, Wandering Beast here, and I've got my little sidekick back there on the bed. But what I wanted to cover is what I was able to accomplish for our last overlanding honeymoon family trip. I did a video touching on some of the upgrades and things that I wanted to accomplish and get done, and I've had a lot of requests to sort of touch on those things and see if I was able to knock everything off my list. And I will tell you that no, I didn't accomplish everything. It was a pretty daunting task to get done, on top of getting ready to get married and everything else that came with that. So where do we start? My ultimate goal was to have some sort of an electronic house battery that could feed the fridge and the fan and run the diesel heater, mostly the heater fan blowing the hot air. And that way, in very cold temperatures, this was a trip in Eastern Oregon in November, we saw single-digit temperatures in winter storm warnings. You'll see that in the upcoming videos to follow. But knowing this going in, I wanted to be able to run, if I needed to, the diesel heater all night, or the fan to exhaust some of the moisture in here. And that really just didn't sit easy with me with the double house batteries, and knowing that I needed to have the diesel 7.3 turbo start in very cold weather, and I wanted to have those batteries solely for the motor. So how did I accomplish that? Well, as I talked to in the previous video, if you haven't seen that, go put that up there, because it's probably touching on a few things that I've already talked about. But there's just the standard solenoid in there. That solenoid then is also tripped by a manual cutoff so that I can control the power. And also from there is then run down to two 100 amp hour lead acid batteries. They were designed for deep cycle solar installation at a house. The guy upgraded to lithium, and I got a pretty good deal off of Marketplace. How did those work? Those worked for everything I needed them to, except for the experiment I was doing with induction cooking, which I didn't even bring that cooktop. It was simply induction cooking, even on low, was too much for the batteries to handle. And there's some experiments that I had done with the truck running, the truck not running. The one thing I did bring as another experiment that did work okay was a 1,000-watt electric kettle, just so that I didn't have to worry about a small butane stove or anything inside heating up basically a coffee. Morning coffee or hot water for oatmeal or something like that when we don't want to be outside the bus cooking. And in order to do that, again, you wake up in the morning, I would start the van anyway to help it start to warm up, to help defrost the windows while we're tearing the tent down or other things are going on. The truck is warming up. And so it's also using the alternator to charge the house batteries for whatever we needed them for: area lights, the heater, the fan, the fridge, all that sort of stuff. It goes into high idle and it instantly starts, filling up those batteries. So while that was happening, we generally used the inverter then. That way the 1,000-watt electric kettle could be going. It was very quick, pretty efficient. It's literally an immersion heater. If you've never played with them before, you can just buy the immersion heater. Maybe we'll do it in a separate video. But all of that stuff worked really well. I didn't have any issues. The truck never failed to start in the super cold weather. We were able to run stuff. Now, things like the fridge don't really have to work very hard when it's 9 degrees out. The diesel heater got a lot of use. However, I didn't have it running all night. We were equipped with sleeping bags and things that are warm enough that if everything failed, we would still be warm and toasty. My wife and I actually slept in a tent outside. We gave the kids the inside space here on most nights. And again, we'll talk about it in our story coming up on the video, but there were some nights where we all spent the night in here. It just made sense. And again, I'll tell the whole story in a future video. So, talking about that, the fridge was pretty new. This was the first big trip with the ice cool, and it was terrific. I loved it. And like I said, it was so cold that we really didn't put it to its test. I've since sold the Grape Solar. I did some more testing in my garage with the 12-volt battery pack from Blue Yeti. as well as the AC hooked up, and it seemed to be doing fine. It got to temperature. The thermostat was a little off, but it definitely worked. And so I sold it for a great deal to an older gentleman that's going to take a trip to Texas. I really hope it works for him the entire way. So was it worth the upgrade? I probably didn't need to get the ice cool as quick as I did. However, I'm happy to have the dual zone. I think it's going to be a good investment and a size going forward as being more of a permanent setup, where the Grape Solar was kind of an impulse buy to get something that we could use, and I could help size things up for building the kitchen, which is kind of the next project, and it worked really well. So I hope they're happy with their Grape Solar, and I'm loving the ice cool so far. We will see. I'll try to do a review. However, I'd really like to get it in some warmer temperatures, maybe in the summer, to really push it to its limits and see what it can do. But it seems to really be very quiet, very efficient, and sips the power very well. Now, my Vanna White back here is laying on the bed. And the bed was a big piece of the puzzle that I was trying to get finished before our trip. And I will let you know, I was up till almost midnight, still working on that bench table solution so that we could have a table and benches during the day. I was almost sure I wasn't getting to the seatbelt portion of turning the bench seats into that. I got the seat cushions made. Right now it's still in bed mode. But I will say, the night before my wedding, while it was still almost midnight and I had to get up early the next morning, I sort of threw in the towel. I did not come up with a solution that I felt was sturdy enough to make the trip, have kids leaning on the table and just keeping it balanced. And I didn't like any of the solutions that I could easily come up with the tools and the products that I had. So I threw in the towel, and we'll throw in a close up here. Now I'll put in some more photos. What I end up doing is using a 2x4 on the ends on the floor. There is a piece that supports the floor down to the bus floor, and then there's actually a hoop in the center. So the table itself will still need to get rebuilt a little bit better. And initially my idea was to have longer 2x4s in these mounts that you can see. But what happened in the end was this 1/2-inch ply that I used for the floor just was too flimsy. And if you follow the channel for a while, you know that my ultimate goal was to have 2 sliding drawers, 2 facing this way into the cab, and then 2 that would go out to the garage. And if I take it out to the garage, I can kind of show you what I ended up doing. As you can see, these totes, the same little yellow top totes, absolutely fit perfectly. And this was totally by accident. I did not measure these totes. I like using them for the trips. But these totes, when I was using them to support the floor to where you'd sit on the bench there, that plywood, to find out what the height was, I discovered you could put 4 of these big top yellow totes in perfectly. They fit beautifully. So what I'm trying to do now, even though after I bolted the benches through the floor, I lost about a 1/4 inch, it's an extremely tight fit right now, and with some of the screws sticking out. But they will slide in and out. They fully retract all the way. I just need to work on either a better support for the floor or some sort of post that will fit in the middle of those. So that's something I have to do as the time goes on. But that was amazing to set up. And the other solution that we did that worked really well, which is not meant to be permanent. All right, so one improvement we did was we used a little bit more drawer space, and this was just kind of a test to kind of organize some of the cooking supplies on one side, coffee and bowls and napkins and things of that nature. All right, now on the front of the ice cool fridge, sitting here in the Sprinter seat, I did put the fridge up on a pedestal that was designed to hold a yellow top. So we had a yellow top underneath here. You can see the front runner pack right now. And then that effectively was our dry storage. It also lifted up the cooler a little bit. I could use it as a workbench or cooking surface. especially with the dual top. That way you could still access part of the fridge and still have some cutting board space or cooking space if you need to cook inside. You could set up glasses for hot cocoa, things of that nature. The other thing that I picked up at Grocery Outlet are these little pop-out book pieces, and I just have them double stick taped to the cooler right now, so when the kids were sitting here, they had somewhere for water bottles to go, books, headphones, all the little knickknacks that end up rolling around the floor. They at least have a home. And this may not be a permanent solution, but definitely something that worked well for this trip, and it was only a couple dollars a piece. So I actually have 3 of them. There's one on the other side. Well, while my assistant falls asleep on the comfy couch up here, the opposite side of the cooking one, I have 3 drawers over here as well. And basically we gave each child a drawer so they could have socks, underwear, t-shirts, things of that nature. And then I had one big tote that kept jackets and big fluffy things, for winter use. But all their day-to-day for the week-long trip, everyone got a drawer. If it didn't fit in the drawer, you didn't get to bring it. And that was a great way of just keeping it organized. It also gives a little more shelf space for just added bags and things of that nature. Well, she seems to be enjoying it quite well. What I end up doing is, I'll open this up in a second, but this was just one of the cheaper 5-inch foam mattresses that I could find on Amazon. And I believe I'll find the name of it here in a second. I want to say it's like Cupid or something. But the 5-inch also came, obviously, with this little cover, which probably needs washing. But what I was using it for was to keep all of these pieces together. One of my worries is all of these lovely upholstered couch pieces, that turn the bench in. I didn't want them sliding around. So because this was permanently in bed mode, I just used that. And I don't know if I'm going to keep it or do that. I think it's a lot of work to do day in and day out, turning this from bench to bed mode, which is something I was worried about and also excited about and looking forward to doing, to find out how that process was going to work, going from bench to bed every day. Leaving it in bench mode does seem to work better for our scenario, but however, long term, this sprinter seat is going away and these benches will be our seats for the kids. So at some point we'll have to turn that in there, but let me get this pulled apart and we'll see what's under it. What you see is kind of the temporary tops for what is our bench seats that are on there. And what I was able to do was run some pop rivets and basically make an angle bracket for this. This will not be quite at this level in the future, but you can see it's quite flush. I did manage to get a little bit of painting done, but that'll lift up, and then you can see the support that I was running underneath was just a simple support in the middle with the sort of 2x4s to support the table. All right, give you a little bit better look. You can see the 1-inch angle that then supports the table for bed mode. And then we have a very similar one down here to support the floor when you're sitting on the bench. And then these 2x4 brackets I kind of modified from some truss brackets, but you can see the amount of play that I had in them, even them screwed down. So I've got to work on that. So when it was up taller here at 30 some inches, that table was just not secure and I couldn't utilize it. Made a quick horseshoe just to support the middle. Wasn't sure about the strength of that table. And then the biggest modification here is we were able to get the 17-gallon diesel tank put in here and plumbed for the diesel heater, as well as kind of a makeshift gauge. You can see that we've got about 3/4 of a tank, and that is from the beginning of November, running this from various weekend trips. So I'm going to be tearing this apart and working on some upgrades. However, we're also going to be doing some winter camping for New Year's Eve, so stay tuned for more videos. All right, now one of the big accomplishments was getting this swing away carrier, getting the tire out from being stored inside. And although I'll probably do a separate review of this, everything worked the way I wanted it to. Latches, swings freely, gives me access to everything in the back compartment. Unfortunately, I did have to store my shovel, mat tracks, chains, things like that, but that's kind of what I built this garage for. And of course, you can access the back 2 totes that are stored in there, and then you still have access on the sides for your tool compartments, etc. So everything for the back area came together well, and that took a lot longer than I expected, but worked flawlessly. Alright, y'all forgive the jet noise. Has been going all day. It's like someone is sitting at the airport revving their engines waiting to take off all day. No idea what they're doing. But this was kind of a last minute project. This was free. I picked up at the dump when I was taking a load of, you know, probably whatever debris from the house, and it was sitting there, and I asked the guy, I was like, what do you do with this stuff? And he's like, take it. So this was designed for a wheelchair lift or wheelchair little hover round cart to be able to get towed behind your car. And I just took the door off. It's also the ramp. And then what I did was I came in here and I grind a lot of this down, and I reinforced a lot of the welds and just tried to make it a little sturdier. It was a little floppy, but it was free. So I did have to drill out a couple of the holes to get it to fit a little closer to the adventure bus, but standard pins went through, and then even with you kind of see the open cockpit design here of the basket, the open end over here, and as well as the bigger sections. There was once where I lost some wood that I stored back here, and that's primarily what I brought this for, was just bringing dry wood, or when I found some at a campsite and I knew I was heading to a desert area, that I could bring firewood with me. And that was absolutely beautiful, because the flat load of this didn't have a lot of weight to it. It did stick out from the bus, and again, if you follow the stories when we put the video out, you'll find out what happened. But it carried just enough wood for about a week. We didn't use it every time, because some places did have enough wood that I could use for fire, but like places in the middle of the Alvord Desert, I mean, you name it, there was several occasions in Eastern Oregon where there isn't a lot of firewood around, short of just chopping down some sagebrush. So when you wanted to get a good fire going when it's single-digit temperatures out there in the cold, this worked great, so I didn't have to store any wood inside of the vehicle. But I would definitely redo the basket a little bit, make it a little bit more secure. Luckily, when I lost the wood, it was on a dirt road. It wasn't on a highway or anything like that. Just undulations and a lot of the washboard roads, I just loosened a strap and lost a piece off there. So quickly found it with a reverse camera and then came back and grabbed it. But this was a great addition to the whole setup. All right, talking about the outside, this is also the first trip I've ever run a Trasharoo. It's Trasharoo. It's a Go Westy. I did pick it up on the used market, I think Facebook Marketplace. It was 30 bucks, brand new, never used, by a gal. She is a influencer in her VW van, and just, it's way too large for her van, really. I can't imagine using this on a van like with a smaller tire. Even with my 235/85s, it took up the space nicely. If you haven't used a Trasharoo, they've got nice heavy-duty clips that kind of do a cross pattern, and then you have this huge just dump pouch that you can either keep trash that's your own trash, so that was nice getting it out of the bus kind of on a daily basis. I also did put some dry firewood in here, so I just knew even if we got ice or rain or snow, some of that wood that's on the tailgate piece there, I'd be able to get a fire started. Now the only thing I noticed is on those really long washboardy sections, this started drooping down like a saggy diaper a little bit, and I would stop and kind of re-shimmy it up. But with that little rack on the back, it just effectively rested the bottom on the wood there, so it didn't go anywhere. But I think if I use it in the future, you know, I'll probably attach it or secure it slightly differently. The other thing I really liked is, if you've never used a Trasharoo, they've got these outside mesh compartments. So buckles, things for the chains on here. I carried my winter diesel additive out here, so I didn't have to smell that or worry about it spilling in the bus. And I did have a little piece break off, literally like the day I was unpacking it, one of these tabs broke off. It's got some MOLLE webbing, so I mean it's handy to do. I did just glue this back together. Maybe I'll put in some shots or do a review if you guys want to look at this. I consider the only other I guess bag that I've seen that I would put my own money onto. I do like the Trash-Roo because they are a little bit cheaper. It's called Last Bag, or Last US Bag, and it's a phenomenal company. It just looks bulletproof. But I want to say it's close to $200. So I know you can get it up at Lolo's. I believe they're just over in Camas, Washington, just on the other side of Portland, Oregon. But phenomenal company. I mean, if you want one to last forever, yeah, go for that. This was secondhand. It was brand new. It was worth the $30, and I will put it back on the bus and continue to use it for the next adventure. So. Well, guys, I'm going to wrap that up because the video you just got done watching is probably close to 20 minutes already. There's a lot of things that I try to get done, get accomplished before the trip. I also have the trip videos coming up, as well as I promised to break out a couple things into their own video, like the swing out bumper, kind of my trials and tribulations with that, as well as we'll have some series coming up with the electrical system because it is going to get upgraded and moved from what I've already been currently using. So stay tuned for those. Honestly, guys, have a great year. I'm going to get started on salted caramel porter from Cascade Lakes Brewing here in Central Oregon. It is New Year's Eve, the day I'm filming this. You'll probably see it a few days after. And I hope you guys stay well, safe, and we will see you down the road. Thanks for all the love and support. You guys are amazing. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow the adventure on social media, and we'll see you on the road.